Did you ever notice how celebrity luxury is always framed as untouchable? Mansions, red carpets, private jets, but almost never the one place fame can't VIP your way out of? A jail cell. And yet, some millionaire celebrities didn't just flirt with scandal, they actually did time. There's a big difference between being famous and being protected. Once the story flips from premieres to police reports, the money, the entourage, the PR machine, none of it matters in the one room where everyone wears the same uniform and the door locks the same way. Today, we're counting down 10 millionaire celebs who abused their power and ended up in jail. From household names who watched their careers implode overnight, to icons who somehow rebuilt their image after a mugshot. We're talking guilty pleas, courtroom chaos, real sentences, and downfalls that feel like a movie. Stick around to the end, because I'm going to ask you one question. Who deserved the harshest consequences? And who do you think got the easiest exit? Robert Downey Jr. is an American actor best known for playing Tony Stark, Iron Man in Marvel's Iron Man and Avengers films, and for starring as the lead actor in a whole host of successful movies. He has won major awards, including an Oscar, but wasn't always this way. He is the rare case where an arrest record became the before in a comeback story. In the late 1990s, addiction and probation trouble kept stacking up. After missing a court-ordered drug test in 1997, he spent 6 months in Los Angeles County Jail. After another missed test in 1999, he was sentenced to a 3-year prison term. However, after serving nearly a year, he was released in 2000 after a judge ruled his cumulative time in custody qualified him for early release. For a while, he was too risky for insurers to cover. What happened next is the part people don't forget. He rebuilt trust, landed roles again, and eventually became one of Hollywood's most bankable stars. That's where the contrast gets brutal with R. Kelly, because here the story doesn't pivot into redemption. It hardens into a number. R. Kelly, Robert Sylvester Kelly, is an American R&B singer, songwriter, and producer who rose to fame in the 1990s and 2000s with hit songs such as I Believe I Can Fly, and for writing, producing music for other artists. On the surface, he was one of the best-performing male artists, but underneath, after years of allegations, he was convicted in federal court on charges including racketeering and sex trafficking, and in June 2022, he was sentenced to 30 years in prison. The "what happened next" is ongoing incarceration, appeals, and a legacy increasingly defined by court documents instead of hit songs. It's the clearest example of fame working like a spotlight. It can make you untouchable for a while, and then make the crash impossible to ignore. From there, the conversation moves to Harvey Weinstein, because his case didn't just punish one man. It cracked open an entire ecosystem. For decades, Weinstein operated as a Hollywood gatekeeper with the power to greenlight careers, bury others, and control rooms quietly through reputation and leverage. When allegations became public, the fallout was immediate and global, energizing the Me Too movement and forcing institutions to confront how silence had been rewarded. Then came criminal convictions. He was sentenced to 23 years in New York and later received an additional 16-year sentence in California. Even after New York's conviction was overturned and the case set for retrial, he remained in custody because of the California conviction. What followed wasn't a comeback, but a slow public unraveling. Appeals, retrials, health claims, and endless headlines, alongside the uncomfortable recognition that one empire's collapse exposes how many people accommodated, enabled, or profited under the old rules. Sports has its own version of the untouchable myth shattering, and it looks like Mike Tyson. In the early 90s, Tyson wasn't just famous, he was a global force, a symbol of dominance whose name traveled beyond boxing into pop culture, tabloid myth, and fear. Then, the story cracked. In 1992, he was convicted of rape and sentenced to 6 years in prison. The conviction didn't erase his celebrity, it complicated it, turning his image into a collision of awe and outrage. Released on parole after about 3 years, in 1995, he returned to a sport and a public already transformed by what they now knew. What happened next was complicated. He returned to boxing, reclaimed titles, and remained a cultural headline. But the conviction never stopped traveling with his name. His arc raises a darker question. When someone's identity is built on power, what happens when the system proves they can be powerless too? Then comes the kind of jail story people don't expect, because it isn't violence, it's the paperwork that finally catches you. In the late 80s and early 90s, Wesley Snipes was one of the most bankable actors. He starred in hits such as Blade in the Blade film series, Passenger 57, and Demolition Man, helping cement his reputation as a leading action star. Wesley Snipes didn't fall through a trapdoor of scandal. He walked into a courtroom because of something almost boring: taxes. In 2008, he was convicted on 3 misdemeanor counts of failing to file federal tax returns. The details weren't flashy, but the message was, there are parts of the system that don't care how recognizable your face is. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison, began serving the sentence in late 2010 after exhausting appeals, and was released in April 2013. What happened next wasn't a vanishing act. He returned to acting and landed notable roles, but the case never stopped following him. In celebrity culture, it hardened into a cautionary tale, proof that fame can buy access, silence, and second chances, but it can't always bargain with institutions built to enforce rules at scale. The scary part is how ordinary the trigger is. No dramatic incident, no single catastrophic night, just a slow accumulation of missed obligations. And if Snipes shows how bureaucracy can lock you up, Martha Stewart shows how image can survive it. In the Clone case, Stewart was convicted in 2004 of conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and making false statements. She was sentenced to 5 months in prison, plus 5 months of home confinement and 2 years of probation. What happened next is the twist. She came back, publicly, commercially, and culturally, turning a criminal chapter into part of the brand narrative. Her story forces a sharp question. Is a comeback easier when your entire identity is built on control, reinvention, and making messes look tidy? But when the sentence is severe enough, there is no reinvention. There's only time. Danny Masterson is an American actor best known for playing Stephen Hyde on That 70s Show and for roles on Men at Work and Netflix's The Ranch. In 2023, he was sentenced to 30 years to life in prison after being convicted of 2 counts of forcible rape stemming from incidents in the early 2000s. What happened next is an appeal path, a permanent separation from public life, and a career effectively replaced by a prison timeline. And that's the theme of this whole list in its purest form. Fame doesn't soften consequences when the system finally closes in. Sometimes it magnifies the fall. The unsettling part is how fast the switch flips. 1 decade, you're a familiar face in living rooms. The next, your life is measured in parole eligibility. If Masterson is a story of the system arriving late but hitting hard, Bill Cosby became a story about what happens when the legal outcome itself changes. Bill Cosby is an American comedian and actor who became a household name through stand-up, the TV series, Spy, and especially The Cosby Show, where he played Cliff Huxtable. However, his America's Dad image collapsed after dozens of women accused him of sexual assault. Cosby was sentenced in 2018 to 3 to 10 years in prison for sexual assault, and he served more than 2 years. Then, in June 2021, Pennsylvania's highest court overturned his conviction and ordered his release, citing a prior prosecutorial agreement that the court said should have barred the prosecution. What happened next was not a clean reset. His reputation remained deeply damaged and polarizing, and the public reaction stayed split between legal technicality and moral accountability. It leaves a chilling question. When a conviction disappears, does the story end or just get louder? After that heavy territory, the next case shows how jail can also become a surreal media event, especially when your entire life already plays out in public. Paris Hilton was sentenced in 2007 to 45 days in jail for violating probation by driving with a suspended license. She ultimately served about 23 days before being released. What happened next was a quick return to celebrity life, with the incarceration turning into one more headline in the brand machine. The contrast is what made it explode. 1 week it's premieres and paparazzi. The next, it's booking procedures and court orders. When punishment becomes spectacle, does it feel harsher, or does it feel like it isn't real? And finally, there's the kind of luxury lifestyle story that collapses under its own weight. Todd and Julie Chrisley are American reality TV personalities best known for the USA Network series Chrisley Knows Best, which aired on USA Network from 2014 to 2023 and followed their family and wealthy lifestyle. In November 2022, they were sentenced to 12 years in federal prison after convictions tied to bank and tax fraud offenses. What happened next included continuing legal fights and public advocacy from their family. And then a dramatic late twist. In May 2025, Reuters reported that President Donald Trump said he intended to pardon them. It's the perfect ending for this theme. Sometimes the luxury life isn't just a lifestyle, it's a liability. And it leaves the final question hanging. How much of what we watch is real and how much is financed by fiction? And that brings us to the real lesson. From Hollywood icons to music superstars to billionaire heirs, these stories prove one thing. Money can buy comfort, but it can't buy immunity. Some of these celebrities lost years. Some lost their careers. Some lost everything. And a few, somehow, managed to turn the mugshot into a comeback story. Now, I want to hear from you. Which case shocked you the most? And who do you think had the most dramatic rise after fall? Drop your answer in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives into celebrity wealth and scandals, and ring the bell so you don't miss what's next.